In 1995, Pizza Hut controlled a quarter of the entire American pizza market, over 7,500 locations, billions in annual sales, a brand so dominant it seemed untouchable. And then, almost silently, it started falling apart. This is not just a story about pizza. It's a story about what happens when a company mistakes momentum for strategy, and what it looks like when the very things that built an empire begin to bury it. It started in 1958 in Wichita, Kansas. Two brothers, Dan and Frank Carney, scraped together $900, leased a small building, and opened a pizza shop. They called it Pizza Hut because the sign only had room for 8 letters. Simple, unglamorous, and absolutely perfectly timed. Because the Carneys hadn't just opened a restaurant, they had stumbled into a wave, actually 3 of them, each one bigger than the last. The first wave was the dining out revolution. In 1929, barely 13% of American meals happened outside the home. By the 1960s, that number had nearly tripled. A growing middle class had money in their pockets and a desire to spend it somewhere other than their own kitchen. Pizza Hut offered exactly that: a destination, a ritual, a reason to leave the house. The second wave was the suburbs. By the 1970s, over 70 million Americans had moved out of cities and into sprawling, car-dependent communities. And suburban life was tailor-made for a chain like Pizza Hut. Wide roads, parking lots, identical storefronts. The format replicated perfectly, most of them owned by local franchise operators hungry for a proven business model. But the third wave was the strangest one: cheese. Americans today consume enormous quantities of dairy, but that wasn't always the case. In the 1960s, the U.S. government was sitting on a surplus of milk it didn't know what to do with. The solution was subsidized cheese, and for a brief, almost accidental moment in economic history, cheese became one of the cheapest sources of calories on the planet. In today's money, roughly $1.50 a pound. And if you're building a pizza empire, that is an extraordinary structural advantage. Low-cost ingredients, high perceived value, customers who felt like they were getting something special for very little money. By 1977, Pizza Hut had grown to 4,000 locations, big enough to attract the attention of a much larger company. Pepsi Corporation came in and bought the chain, and their logic was clean. Put Pepsi products in every Pizza Hut in America, leverage corporate resources, advertising muscle, and brand expertise to push the chain even further. On paper, it made sense. But there was a problem hiding inside that deal. For Pepsi, Pizza Hut was a side project, one asset among many, and when a company treats something as a side hustle, it rarely gives it the focus it truly needs. For now, though, the momentum was still carrying everything forward. Through the 80s and into the 90s, Pizza Hut doubled down on what it did best: the dining experience. And they understood something fundamental, that people weren't just coming for food, they were coming for an occasion. So the chain leaned hard into menu innovation, gimmicks in the best possible sense of the word, stuffed crust pizza, a concept so simple it seems obvious in hindsight, cheese baked directly into the crust itself. Customers didn't just eat it, they performed it, pulling the crust apart, watching the cheese stretch. It turned a meal into a moment. And then came the Bigfoot pizza in 1995, 2 feet of rectangular pizza designed for the sheer spectacle of it. That single product drove an additional $1 billion in sales. One menu item, $1 billion. The gimmick era was working, and Pizza Hut had climbed to $5.7 billion in annual revenue and 25% of the U.S. pizza market. But 1995, the year of their greatest triumph, was also the year the ground began to shift beneath them. The first crack was subtle, almost invisible at first. For decades, cheap cheese had been Pizza Hut's quiet competitive advantage. But by the mid-90s, something else was getting cheaper: chicken. Advances in industrial farming had made chicken 2 to 3 times larger and significantly less expensive per calorie than it had been in the 1950s. Places like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A were now building empires on a cost structure that undercut pizza without even trying. The cheese moat was drying up. The second crack was cultural. American life was accelerating. The pace of the 90s, dual-income households, longer commutes, overscheduled children, was quietly making the Pizza Hut experience feel like a burden rather than a treat. Spending 2 hours in a sit-down dining room started to feel like a luxury most families simply couldn't afford, not financially, temporally. And here is where the Pepsi acquisition came back to haunt the brand. By 1997, Pepsi had spun off its restaurant holdings, Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell, into a new company called Yum Brands. And while Yum was a capable operator, Pizza Hut remained exactly what it had been under Pepsi: one brand in a portfolio, a business unit, not a passion project. Nobody was asking the hard questions. Nobody was standing in a declining dining room wondering what the next chapter looked like. The corporate attention was spread too thin, and the franchise network, largely independent operators running their own locations, had no central force demanding quality, consistency, or reinvention. Pull up Google reviews for Pizza Hut locations in almost any American city today, and the picture is grim. One-star reviews citing cold food, apathetic service, locations that feel stuck somewhere between 1987 and neglect. That is not bad luck. That is the compounding result of a brand no one was truly minding. While Pizza Hut was drifting, a competitor was quietly building something dangerous. Domino's Pizza had been around for decades, but in 2010, under new leadership, they made a decision that would change the entire industry. They publicly admitted that their product wasn't good. They aired commercials where real customers called their pizza cardboard and their sauce ketchup, and then they fixed it, and then they went entirely digital. Domino's rebuilt themselves around one single obsession: get a better pizza to your door as fast as possible, ordered as easily as possible. They weren't burdened by large dining rooms and expensive real estate. They didn't need tables or wait staff or ambiance. They needed kitchens and drivers and a world-class digital ordering system. Some people in the industry joked that Domino's was really a tech company that happened to sell pizza, and that wasn't entirely wrong. Their app became one of the most used food ordering platforms in the country. Their tracking system, their loyalty program, their relentless investment in the delivery experience, all of it added up to something Pizza Hut had no answer for. Because Pizza Hut was trying to be everything at once: a dine-in destination, a delivery option, and menu innovator, a casual family restaurant. And when you try to serve every master simultaneously, you risk mastering nothing. By 2017, the scoreboard told the story plainly. Domino's had captured 42% of the US pizza market. Pizza Hut, once the undisputed giant of the industry, was closing stores and watching its market share shrink year after year. The specialist had defeated the generalist, completely and in plain sight. And then came COVID-19. If there was ever a moment in history that should have been Pizza Hut's redemption, it was a global pandemic that forced everyone to stay home and order food to their doors. Pizza delivered to your house on demand. That should have been the company's finest hour. Instead, Pizza Hut's sales declined during COVID. Think about that for a moment. The world's most famous pizza chain lost ground during a period when pizza delivery demand surged. And the reason was simple. Domino's had spent a decade preparing for exactly this moment. Their digital infrastructure, their delivery network, their brand association with convenience, all of it meant they were perfectly positioned to absorb an enormous wave of demand. And they did. Domino's grew by double digits during the pandemic era. Every customer who couldn't get a satisfying Pizza Hut experience found their way to a competitor. The franchise problem compounded everything. Over the years, Pizza Hut had allowed a single franchise operator, a company called NPC International, to accumulate an enormous number of locations across the country. When COVID hit, NPC's balance sheet couldn't survive the disruption. In 2020, NPC declared bankruptcy, one of the largest restaurant bankruptcies in US history, taking hundreds of Pizza Hut locations down with it. The chain that had once stood at 7,500 locations was now fighting for relevance. And here is the lesson that makes the story worth telling. Pizza Hut did not fail because of bad luck. It failed because every single advantage that had built its empire eventually became a liability. Cheap cheese, gone, replaced by cheaper protein. Suburban dining rooms, once assets, now expensive overhead, anchoring a brand to a fading behavior. Franchise expansion, once a growth engine, later a fragile dependency. Menu gimmicks, once differentiators, later distractions from a deeper identity crisis. Even being acquired by a large corporation, which seemed like validation and security, turned out to mean permanent second-tier status inside someone else's priorities.
This is one of the oldest patterns in business, and one of the hardest to see from the inside. The very things that carry you to the top are the things you become most committed to defending, long after the world has moved on from needing them. Pizza Hut isn't gone, but it is a cautionary tale dressed in a red roof, a reminder that scale is not a strategy, that momentum is not a moat, and that the competitor you should fear most isn't the one attacking your strengths. It's the one quietly building something you never thought to become.
Hey, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to The Business Lens. It really helps us keep creating stories like this one. And let us know in the comments what company, empire, or business figure you'd like us to cover next. We read every suggestion, and your idea might be the next deep dive on this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.